the vaccines. I'm gonna try. I always get my videos taken down saying something stupid, like the truth, saying facts or something. People say, oh, I live my truth, right? And that's fine. Go ahead. Live your truth. But know in your mind and in your heart that there's only one truth. It's the truth. No matter how long it takes you to get to that truth, it's constant. The truth itself is constant. It never changes. You can be slow at getting to it. Like Fauci always says, oh, the science changed. No, the science doesn't change. You caught up to the science. Or the science is catching up to the truth. But the truth was constant. And the science, actual science, is constant as well. And is, you know, now he says the science changed as in we've caught up. So we learned something new. He says that all the time, but we've never learned anything new. We always knew, we've known the same things. Us guys in this group of people who talk like I do have been saying what they're finally catching up to since day one. Right away, when they said 2 weeks to slow the curve, I was saying that doesn't make any sense. But we'll do it. But it doesn't. It's an overreaction to what's going on, I guess, was what was my thought was. And a lot of us all thought that. You're overreacting. Slow your roll. This is just like SARS and all those other things that we've gone through this. We've done this in our lifetime. Millennials, calm down. Settle down. It's okay. They do this every 4 or 5 years, usually election times. Don't worry about it. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just a bunch of bullshit and hype. And there's always death. You could make up a pandemic situation like we just had with tons of different things. Cars, guns, knives, sidewalks, bicycles, coffee, cigarettes, drugs, alcohol, buses running people over, pianos being dropped on people's heads. Like the thing, the movie A Thousand Ways to Die or whatever, that show A Thousand Ways to Die or whatever it was. I don't really, it wasn't good, but there's a lot more than 1,000. There's billions of ways to die. Oh, that's what it was. It was 1,000 Ways to Die in the Old West or whatever it was. At the Family Guy did the Family Guy Seth made that movie, and then there was a TV show that was 1,000 Ways to Die, and they just did different episodes every week or whatever that people died in mysterious, weird ways or whatever. You take a risk getting out of bed, yet alone going outside. There's a reason that agoraphobics have a leg to stand on. You know, we look at them and say, okay, that's crazy, right? You know, you lock yourself, you live in your house all the time, you won't go outside, you're afraid of outside. But there's a lot to be afraid of outside. Millions of things can kill you just walking out your fucking door. And, you know, depending on where you live, could be a gang shooting or a fucking grizzly bear or, you know, a mountain lion or, you know what I mean, or whatever. Fucking cold here, you go out and fucking, you could freeze to death. Um, fucking go to bed down south, and you could have some fucking creepy little thing crawl into your bed and kill you, like a snake or a fucking big spider. Um, so they take a risk going to bed. And so do we. You're asleep and you're vulnerable. You could be robbed or fucking raped or burned or fucking. Everything in life is a risk. And then to give up society and the future to protect the old is stupid. It's nice, but it's stupid. And most of the old, any of the ones with integrity, wouldn't want you to do it. They'd gladly give their lives for their grandkids. I'd gladly give my life for my fucking kids and my nieces and nephews. In a heartbeat. Of course I would. I wouldn't expect them to change everything in society to protect my generation from maybe getting sick, maybe dying from that sickness, depending on how unhealthy you are to begin with. And if you're that unhealthy to begin with, that just shows that you lived a shitty, selfish life and had shitty decisions up until now, and now your shitty self wants us to make a shitty decision for your safety or your sake so that you can live a little longer. That's the most selfish thing that anybody could ever do. Especially if you're like a parent or whatever, or a grandparent. You know, if you're a grandparent and you're thinking that, you know, you want to live a little longer, so you think that the kids should give up all their rights and freedoms. You should be put down, technically. Like you're the problem with the world. You're the reason that things are the way they are. People like you. That kind of thinking. Selfishness. Greed. Having more than enough and watching people go without. When in my life I've had more than enough, I've felt obligated to want to give it away and help others. Just recently, I had extra space in my house, and you know, I was even thinking about getting a foster kid for a little bit, just to fill that space, but also to help somebody, right? Because I had extra groceries, all the bills were paid, and I had 2 rooms that just like a bedroom and a living room that I never ever went into. I didn't go into those rooms. They just fucking sat empty. I went and cleaned them, and that was it. Like, put furniture in there and stuff. Had a bunch of stuff, but I mean, it was just a waste. I moved my nephew in. That was a big mistake because he was on drugs. Hiding that from me, and then whatever. Didn't work out, but. And then I also, at that time, had some extra, like I said, I was putting savings away, so I supported a Filipino family for a while, paid her rent and groceries and stuff for the kids, and then bought her a bundle of dresses and set her up as the company so that she could start selling dresses and stuff. And she ended up getting a nicer apartment and moving and stuff recently, so was happy to hear that. And then I had moved on from her to a African boy where he was starving or whatever, and I just found him, and I sent him money to live for a year and a half, and then I bought him a bunch of chickens and stuff like that, and set him up to start selling eggs. I don't think it worked out well for him and me. I think he might have been ripping me off. I don't think he was real. But whatever. He was a real person who needed that money. I just don't think that he was sincere on who he was telling me he was. Anyway. So, when other people that I see have too much and hoard it up, like recently, about, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe less, 7 years ago, something like that, I was building urns for people to be buried in, because I seen how the funeral parlors worked, and it's a big scam. And they were selling these little shitty urns for like outrageous amounts of money, $600 for a little pewter vase, and so I made really nice hardwood boxes and pine boxes with a lot of detail on them, and sold them for half of that. And hardwood ones were a little more, but even still, they were less than 600. And way nicer, and looked way nicer sitting in the funeral parlor, because if your bouquet of flowers is this big and the vase is this big, what are you there to look at? Who are you there to see? You're there to see the person who died and pay your respects, or you want to see some flowers or whatever, right? So when the box is this big, it kind of competes with all the flowers and all the decorations and the pictures and the shit that goes all around. Anyway, and me and my father had worked together carpentry over the years, and I was working in his garage building these urns for people, and he'd said, I retired from carpentry, all these tools are yours, you can take them home with you if you want. But I liked working with my dad, so I said, if you don't mind, I'd rather keep them here, and I'll work here so I'm around you. And he liked that. And I tried to pay power bills and stuff like that, and they wouldn't let me. But either way, it was real nice. And his girlfriend was right there when we had this conversation. And then he had a couple strokes, and she immediately took all the tools to her brother's house and said that he was using them for something. And then about a year went by, and I tried to get them because I wanted to build some urns, and he said he was still using them, so he'd be done soon, blah blah blah. Another year went by, and he said, oh, I'm still using them. So I said, well, I got some time, I'll come and finish your house so that you're done with my tools and I can bring them back to town. No, I want to do it myself, blah blah blah. Anyway, and then there was a few tools that were left behind, and I went and got my own tools, and went and grabbed the shaper table and a couple things, and they treated me like I stole the fucking shaper table and the planer, to the point that when I was done building a couple of boxes, I took it all back there and dropped it off, and they got it right out of there and went and hid it, and I didn't take back the planer. They had the audacity to call me and offer me money for the fucking planer. And they're both rich. They both own a couple houses, properties, fucking retired, got all kinds of money, fucking no worries. And would steal from me. And don't have any use for those tools. None of them. Not even the grandkids have any desire to be a carpenter, and if they did, it would be me teaching them, not Mike. He's a fucking plumber. But it just goes to show people will, the priorities of people are just messed. And if your own family, who you like, and I've known her and him, I've known them for my whole life, but then she's been with my dad for 15 years or whatever. I was 17 when my dad cheated on my mom or whatever. So they got together by the time I was like 24. So they've been like 20, almost 20 years, 18 years, something like that. And so that's a long time to know somebody. And then I can remember going on camping trips with her kids and me and mom and dad when we were little, like 8. So I've known her forever. And I've done a lot for her and my dad, obviously. But and mostly for my dad, but also ex facto worked out for her. So why would you think a politician or a corporation would do any better for you than what my family, or probably most of your family, or even you would probably do to your family and friends? Why do you trust them so much? Now, I know if you're a flat earther watching this and all that, you don't. You're smarter than that. But most of the people that watch any of my videos, it's for hate reasons. Right? So you hate my opinions and what I say, and you trust these dill holes that are making all kinds of money. And then you got people who say, well, there'd have to be too many people in on it to hide the flat earth kind of stuff or whatever. No, because they get those geologists under contract. They don't have the money to fund their own work. Everybody works for the corporations, and the corporations are being owned by less and less people all the time. So everybody's working for the same, like even if, like here, we're owned by Irving Oil, the province, and everybody works for Irving Oil, or you work for the government, basically, in New Brunswick. And everybody thinks Irving's this big conglomerate, blah, 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 but they're not. They're owned, they have bosses. They have the same bosses that all of those big corporations have. When it comes time for Davos and they go to the meeting, they're just a tiny little fish and they do what they're fucking told, or they'll be crushed. And that's the way it is with any of these, except for like Bill or Soros. And they're still owned by the upper people, but they're just given all the wealth because they're the canary. Back in the 90s, that was a big thing to make. People made like the CEO of the company like a canary, or they made it a dog, or they made it a cat, or whatever. And then when the company got sued or for something, the dog or the cat or whatever got sued, and it didn't fucking matter. And so that's Bill Gates. He's the canary. That's George Soros. He's the dog. And they're just given all that power so that you don't know who really has the power. One of the comments on one of my videos was that because I had bad lighting in my house, and so I was like just an outline in the shade. You couldn't see my face or any of my features, and Buddy said, "Ah, you're like an evil fucking genius or something with the lighting, fucking blah blah blah." Right? It was just a fluke, but but yeah, they are evil geniuses, and there is an evil genius behind them who is that hidden face. Nobody knows, you know what I mean? The Bill's lucky to know that guy. George is lucky to know that guy or that girl, whatever. Those guys and girls. Like to actually know who they are. They know they exist, but to know their face and their name, probably not. They probably won't know until it's revealed that they're the Antichrist, blah, blah, whatever. You guys overestimate people. Big time. And by you guys, that is the people who watch. The people who think like kind of half like me, like conservative. Steven Crowder, if you're a big fan of his, he's that way. He like halfway there or whatever, but still a Rothschild crony. Right? Whether he knows it or not. He's either totally convinced himself and living in a lie, which tons of people are doing, and you know, people do it in their everyday to day lives. You know, somebody who lives a lie in their relationship or whatever, and they think that their son's in prison, but they think he's great, or their husband's cheating on them, but they think they're married. They go on like their marriage is great, even though they know that he's cheating. Or vice versa, whatever. But they live these lies, and they'll set up this false life all around themselves, and convince themselves, no, it can't be that. And that's where he is, right? And that's a dangerous place to be. If you close your mind to something being a possibility, well, you'll never know anything, right? I was did a Hebrew lesson yesterday. So, in the Hebrew, it talks about each letter wanting to be the letter that God used to start and make creation. And there's a reason for each letter that it couldn't. Like Shin is Shaddai, which is God's name. It's Shah, which is lie, and it's Shakar, which is falsehood. So because it's lie and falsehood, it couldn't be the building block of earth, because everything would be a lie and a falsehood. Shemek was another really good one. I went through them all, but Shemek is the beholder of all that fall, which is a title of God. Title of God, and it was needed in its place, and it's too exalted. Or no, it was needed in its place, so it couldn't be that building block, because it needed to be what it is. And there was another one, the Kaf. The Kaf, it will be used when God splits his hands together in despair of our misfortunes, and the misfortunes of Israel. Yod is Yah, but it's also Yasharahar, which is the evil inclination. But there's another one. Tov. The Tet Tov is good. So Tet thought that it could be the letter the truly good does not belong to this earth, belongs to the world to come. So Tet was too good. There was another letter that was too good. Va and He, because they compose the unethical name of God. But there was another letter that was too exalted to become, maybe that was it though. But then the Lamed is Lahot, the celestial tablet for the Ten Commandments. But it forgot that it was shivered together, or the tablets were shivered in place by Moses, not by God. So that disqualified it as well. Anyways, all these letters made a case the way it's written in the book, like the letters themselves came to God and spoke to him. But really, it was the case that God was making in his head. Or was it the actual letters? Like, did he give them form, consciousness in the spirit realm? Because they're very powerful. Language is very powerful. Words are spells. So it would make sense that the Decalogue is living, is a spirit. And that when we put words together and call on those spirits, we can actually change the world using spells. We change our lives, change things. Keep hearing something. So, I don't know. It's just interesting to think about. But we always have to keep an open mind on everything. And that's something that, like, is a huge stretch to keep an open mind on. You know, that the letters are actual spirits and can speak and think and talk to God. And he had a conversation with them. Right? Like, so, to think that archaeology and earth science can be a lie is a very, very small stretch. Even if there were 1,000 people in on it that actually knew. A lot of people will be crooked for money. They think it doesn't matter that much, too, right? We've already proven all this stuff, so your little piece of the lie isn't going to matter. Don't worry about it. We're going to make you super rich. You're never going to have to worry about anything, and neither are your great-great-grandkids. And who cares about those people? They're just, look, you just proved that they're just fucking evolved monkeys anyways. So why don't you just have a good life and not worry about them? And that's how they go about these archaeologists and all these people, right? Or they say, you're under contract. If you say anything, we're destroying your life. And you'll never work again. You're going to work at McDonald's. And live in a fucking apartment somewhere in a little shithole. All those student loans. And just being on your back. You say a word about this. You're under contract. I don't know why that's so hard to understand. Contracts are contracts. Have a good morning.